Hello, Hockey World. We're having like some stuff torn up in our house, so I put a fake green screen behind me today. If you haven't been able to tell, but and you see it doesn't quite cover the entire of my kitchen.
Well, it looks like you're at the Wells Fargo Center.
It does. This is kind of what This is pretty much what our press piece look like in the Wells Fargo Center. Anyway, Kevin, you had something that you want to discuss today.
Well, I just think it's just fun and fascinating. Anybody who's followed the shooting down of the unidentified objects, one of them over Lake Huron, which is near Michigan, where I live, it makes me chuckle every day. Yesterday, Senator John Kennedy told everyone to lock their doors after participating in a hearing, which I found usual. I found it really amazing that the Biden administration, through its press secretary, felt that they had to announce that they don't believe this is extraterrestrial in nature.
Oh, I love that.
Hold on a second. We have a theme song for this segment.
And it fell a little flat, Mike.
It's the X-Files theme.
I
Come
know,
on.
but you need more volume.
All right, so I am a UFO expert. Okay, so I my whole life I have
thing, but okay.
Unidentified free agents. So no, but I'm unrestricted free agents, UFA expert. Anyway, no, but have you guys watched any of the really interesting documentaries that are done by this one guy? Oh gosh, I'll find out the name of it.
I will tell you this.
I believe my dad was an Air Force pilot. He saw things. I believe I'm totally at 100% in belief.
Here's what I'll say. When my wife is away, to amuse myself, once in a while I'll watch some of these UFO documentaries and laugh and chuckle. Now, pilots will see stuff. There's no question about it. Sometimes it's sunspots. Sometimes it was something that was being tested by another government that they don't want to admit.
Right.
Sometimes it's a glare. So there's all kinds of things that they see. There's no question about it. But think about this. If these are truly, and I'm going to just put it in quotes, trial balloons, this is a hell of a way to try and, take over a country with balloons that don't even move that fast. So I'm not particularly worried about it.
Well, okay, first of all, they don't move that fast for a reason. Especially that the first one, the Chinese spy. It wasn't a balloon that just floated with the current. It had directional ability.
Sure.
So they purposely flew it over like our ICBM areas in Montana. It went over Missouri. It went over South Carolina, and it wasn't just floating like up.
Right. So what are they hoping to find out in Montana other than it's boring?
I told you the ICBM areas it's highly classified.
Oh please! You know what? When that thing was going over, when they shot it down, I was expecting candy to come out.
All right, what you want to watch is the documentary you really want to watch for this. Okay, it's called The Phenomenon. The Phenomenon. It's on
Netflix, I'm sure.
It's not on Netflix. It's on Amazon.
Amazon, okay.
But it's called The Phenomenon, and it's absolutely unfreaking believable. And I'm not like, when I was a kid, I loved UFOs. Like that was my favorite thing as a kid. I went out, I looked for them all the time. I was like,
I've driven on so many desolate roads, Zach. So have you at 2 a.m, 3 a.m, farm kind of roads. Nobody has ever approached me. Ever.
No. But
I'm willing. Take it.
But here's the thing. Like, there are when you watch these documentaries, I challenge you guys to watch The Phenomenon before our next show.
Oh, that's a challenge. Okay.
All right, or before Monday even. Okay. And just check it out and see what you think, because honestly, if anyone in the chat room has seen this, it's really frigging good. It's like,
you can't get me to stay on this show.
That's not true. I think, but you have to watch this. You have to really watch this, because you just will blow your mind. Like, it really makes you think after a while. The conclusion that comes up from this thing is like that UFO sightings have always been connected with nuclear testing that we've done here. And it really does make you wonder that if there's an extra being out there that's afraid of us with nuclear weapons. And that's honestly what it comes off as. Like, where
would they be? They'd be so far ahead of us. Nuclear weapons would be like a toy to them.
No, they would be, but they know that it could destroy our planet. So if they're going to try to figure out, like, they have to figure out whether or not we can handle it and whether or not they can stop it before we destroy our planet, because because perhaps in the universe, other people have discovered this ability to make bombs out of nucleons or whatever, nucleuses. So other
They
people
probably have invisibility. Why are they bothering with a balloon?
No. I don't know what the balloons are. Okay, I'm not sure what they are, but you gotta, regardless of that, you must watch the phenomena.
It's
I'm telling
low
you.
tech. It's low tech. That's what it is.
Okay, so C-Mac watched it. He watched it in the chat room.
Well,
Tell me, it's not. It's pretty freaking incredible. Like, I was very skeptical when I watched it. I'm like, holy cow! And he did two others too that are just really cool. But these are probably spy things. They're probably
unless Gillian Anderson is on that show, I'm not watching.
I mean, here's one thing I'll say for sure. So, like in World War II, there's a lot of stuff that the Germans did, testing and otherwise, that we never knew about, right? And then we started to see shows on it, like in the 2000s, like, and maybe a little before then. Then you started to find out about all these top secret operations and what they were doing and stuff. That stuff goes on all the time, and I think that's part of what the UFOs that people see really are.
Yeah, no, I do think that happens. Okay, but having a dad who was in the military, he would tell me about things that he saw too, and my dad was not a conspiracy theorist. Like, he was. But he was a lieutenant colonel in the Air Force, anything but a conspiracy theorist.
The funny thing is that had not people in Montana with like telescopic lenses not seen this balloon, this would have never been talked about. It got exposed.
I think that's probably true.
Yeah, it got exposed on social media.
Kevin, you were muted. I think we got you now. We can hear you.
Yep.
Then it got picked up by the networks, and then the Biden administration had to deal with it. And a lot of people believe that the last week or so, them shooting down everything that's not everything that's not nailed down.
This apparently is not the first time it's happened. It happened apparently twice in the Trump administration. Right. And they let it go.
No, but I'm talking about the shooting down.
I know that, but I'm talking about the balloon.
This is something that haven't we learned this? I mean, haven't we learned since 9/11 that we don't give publicity to things like this? Like this is like, I'm sure, like, do we really think that no terrorist things have happened since 9/11? Really? Do you not think that some small things have happened, but they've just, because terrorism is all about scaring people.
They've thwarted a lot. There's no question.
They've thwarted a lot, and maybe some small things have actually happened that they said weren't terrorist acts, and because by making it a terrorist act, suddenly it becomes a lot more dangerous.
Sure, I get that.
But Kevin, what are your thoughts on UFOs?
Well, I'm always been very curious about them, and I think there's someone else out there.
Yeah,
I've always felt that.
For sure.
Although I think, and there's always been, and you brought it up, but pilots have always talked about for years kind of oddities, and I thought it was interesting. I saw the one initial report that the pilots, one of the pilots said it had a signature, and yet it had no jet propulsion system. Yeah. Now that is an odd.
That is insane. And I mean, did you watch? There's a documentary on Amazon that I'm challenged those guys to watch. Way, you got to watch it too before like Monday at some point. The Phenomena, it's called. And if you watch this, it's a group of in like 2018, a bunch of scientists and old Air Force people and old CIA people got together and held a press conference in New York City, talking about all the UFO stuff that they knew that they couldn't talk about before. And it's just the most incredible thing. Yeah. It's just really.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of unexplained things that happen that, aren't necessarily UFO related, just the phenomena of science in general that we don't always have a handle on.
Oh, yeah, no question.
But there could always be something. I disagree with a little bit about what Russ said about things, or no, you said it about things happening or whoever said it, things happening that we don't know about. In this world that we have, if there's anybody that's related to it that's still alive, it's going to come out, because they're going to tell people, and somewhere along the line, somebody on social media is going to say, well, my uncle's best friend's wife's baker, had something happen to it like that. It's so, in the 1940s and 50s, it was, I wouldn't say simple, but it was far easier to maintain a secret than it is today.
But there are some classified things, Kev, that I can tell you that people do not know about.
The one thing
you do know about them?
I know about one thing that I can guarantee 4 of you don't know about.
And it's classified?
Tell us
someone shared it to you?
I'm not saying.
Yeah, okay.
Well, there you go. All right, well, let's start the show on that tease, Russ. Russ,
Just
there.
saying.
Russ knows the answer to the universe and
I
everything.
do
else.
not.
Yeah, well, he always knows who's going to win, so I would
No, I
expect
don't.
nothing less. So,
All right, well,
man.
I enjoyed UFOs as opposed to pitchers and catchers, so thanks. I appreciate it.
Oh, ow.
I want to tell Russ, though, you're not the only person I do that to. One of my colleagues who's involved in the betting things was just ecstatic that he picked the winner. And I said, you had a 50-50 shot. it's just one or the other team.
That's good. No, I appreciate it. I have no angst about it.
Ironically, I'm wearing this shirt today, by the way. I didn't want to show you this. It says, I need my space.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah,
I like that.
I like it. Anyway,
did you buy that at Canaveral or?
I bought it in the Florida airport because near I was going out of Florida and I saw they had a NASA store and I saw the shirt in the window and I thought that was hilarious. So I'm like, yep.
Yeah.
All right, so let's go. Here we go. Oh, Hockey World, it is Wednesday, February 15th, 2023.
I'm Michael Agello, and next week I'm taking a cruise in the Bermuda Triangle.
I'm Russ Cohen. I don't believe in Bigfoot.
I'm Kevin Allen, and I don't believe in cruises.
Same here.
Neither do I.
And I'm Eklund, and I don't believe in Mike. You're watching HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes to you every Monday through Friday to fill you in on the comings and goings in the hockey world. And we talked UFOs today, and the show is starting at 1:17. So
yeah, and I started it, and then I had to leave because my granddaughter was having a meltdown. So
yeah, that's okay. It was I think it was the aliens taking over her.
So she was doing her best Mike imitation.
Yeah, she's just trying to not find it. But anyway, let's talk. Let's. What do we got? We got some. I want to throw a rumor out there yet. I have not posted my blog yet, which I'm really sorry. I will post it right after this because it's all written, and I just have to edit it because otherwise it would look like I wrote it with my foot. So I have to make sure I'm the kind of guy who has to edit everything I put up before I put it up. But anyway, my blog today is about a rumor that I heard today that Jake Allen could very well be heading to Pittsburgh. Kevin, anything to that? Do you think?
I mean, they've been concerned about Jari's injury, and it's DeSmith, who has been a very good backup goalie in his career, has been inconsistent this season. Yeah. So I think there is some concern there. But if they do that, then I would say that Jari's injury is far more severe than they've led us to believe.
Yeah, but I think that's probably true. But even if not, I mean, based on where they were last year, don't you think that makes Hextall a little bit nervous? I mean, they went in last year thinking everybody was okay, and then before you know it, they had a third string goalie.
Yeah,
but I think what Kevin's saying is right. From what I kept hearing out of Pittsburgh is, and they kept teasing it on Twitter, like, "Hey, Jari's back any day now," and he's still not back. And I think Hextall as a goalie is kind of realizing, okay, even though he himself thought he would be back shortly after the break, he also now realizes, like what Kevin said, hey, DeSmith has been really good, but now this year a little off, and I don't know what the health of Jari is, and this team is in a playoff position. I can't go in with the playoffs like that.
And they have a limited window. We know that the time is running out for Crosby. I mean, Crosby's had an incredible year, but all their veteran guys, Crosby, Malkin, Letang, etc., they've got 2 or 3 years to win, and they really can't waste this year on the hope that Jari is going to be healthy when the playoff. They don't want the situation as of last year where they had Mr. Beef and Broccoli playing in Game 6 of the series against the Rangers. So, I mean, they if they go out and get a goaltender, it makes a ton of sense.
Yeah. Hey, don't badmouth Beef and Broccoli. Strong meal. Anyway. But yeah, I'm with you. It does make sense. I think that, and Jake Allen has been very good. Like people, I was talking to somebody this morning about it, and they said, yeah, he's been really, really good.
That team's defense, yeah.
I know. Hextall loves Jari like that. There's no question about that. Hextall loves Jari. He does. He thinks that he's a really solid goalie. And and it makes sense because Jari plays. He's a little Hextall-ish, in the way he plays too sometimes.
But doesn't this smack you a little? Okay. You understand that Pittsburgh would be interested in Allen because they need a goaltender, but with Montreal, doesn't this smack you a little bit of Tim Murray trading Jonas Enroth back in 2015 when the Sabres were trying to finish dead last? They're managing the tank, and then depriving them of Jake Allen and probably Russ. Who are they going to go with? Are they going to go with Caden Primo or
I mean, they could bring up Primo now. It wouldn't be a bad time.
Or
Yeah.
Samuel
Montembeau will be the guy.
Samuel Montembeau playing.
They love Montembeau, yeah.
Now he'll be the guy for now, but Primo could get some starts. I mean,
I'm selling on this just because when Jake Allen was injured, the young man whose name escapes me right now,
Caden Primo.
No, the goalie that played very well for them. Montembeau played very, very well for them. So, and they would
I
just
think
want
he'll get the bulk of the starts, but I think Primo could come up and be the backup.
Yeah, no, but I'm just saying I don't know that this is all about the. I think Mike wants to make this about the drive to.
No, it's not.
Pick. I think it's more of what they might be able to get.
Yes,
for Jake Allen.
I think he's got value. I mean, he does.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is the case, and I think that he is definitely he's been a clutch backup. He's been a very good. He's very good. He's very good from the backup spot. Like that's what he's been very good at. And if Jari's healthy at this point, if you're the Penguins, you might need two goalies to get through this thing. Like even if Jari's healthy, can you depend on him being healthy for an entire playoff run? I mean,
no.
Well, DeSmith's coming off a really big game, though. You know what I mean? Like that's funny.
Yeah.
Funny. The timing of it is funny because he had 39 saves.
Yeah, he had a good night last night for sure. But like you say, he's been really not very good.
He has been. I don't disagree. I don't. Yeah, I mean, I think there's some logic to the move. I'm just saying. I don't know how much of the because Allen's salary, I believe, is in the threes, right?
Yeah, 3,875 or something like that.
Yeah, Montreal would have to take care.
Well, I had an idea on that. Well, first of all, he's 2,875 this year, and then he had a 2-year extension at 3,855 for 2 more years. I'll go out on a limb based on the talk of who Pittsburgh wants to trade before the deadline. That maybe this is a 1-for-1 Kasperi Kapanen for Jake Allen.
Yeah, I asked somebody about Kapanen, and because his name is definitely out there all the time, and they don't play him very much, and his statistics are much better than they should be based on how much he plays. He's sort of one of these guys that really, when you look at his stats, they're really good for minutes played.
It sounds like it's a philosophical difference.
Like they just don't have the right spot for him. Like he's not slotted in anywhere for some reason. It just doesn't have the right area for him. So they could definitely move him, but I don't know if they would or not.
I mean. They have to clear.
I don't think they'd have to for Jake Allen. I mean, I think that Jake Allen is. I don't think it would take. I think that's too much to give up for Jake Allen.
Yeah, but it might be that tacking on 2 more years onto that. Well, that's insurance against, I guess, against Jari.
Yeah,
scooting out the door.
Right.
Yeah.
UFA. Yeah.
Right, or even as a backup. Even just as a backup. If you're the Pittsburgh Penguins, you need to have a backup if Jari's your goalie because he's really good, but he does get hurt and he does.
I don't. You're not going to give Jari $8 million and then have a $3.85 million backup. So
I think you'll only be paying half of it. I think in reality is I think that Montreal would pick up half of that salary. I don't see why they wouldn't.
I don't think so. For 3 years on a rebuilding team, that's dangerous.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, people think rebuilding teams want to hang on to their cap space because like Yzerman. Hasn't done that as well. Is that? I see Russ has got breaking news there.
Rob Rossi.
I'll check that. I'll check that out. I believe.
Check that out. I've heard that too.
Yeah, because if it is,
also there is something else. I saw it on Instagram, but apparently it was for a few hours ago. Alex Ovechkin lost his father, so that's.
No, that's what I'm talking about.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah. Also, that's confirmed.
That's confirmed. Yeah.
Yeah. He messaged it. On Instagram.
Yeah, I mean, I did a translation on Instagram, but you never know.
We saw the Capitals made a statement earlier that he'd be going. He wouldn't be with the team.
Right.
Oh no, I realized that, but I didn't know
That's
what
a shame.
happened there. So did he get back in time? Do we know, or
I don't know.
Yeah, we don't know. He didn't specify.
There's so many implications of that loss, and I know first and foremost, it's all about the Ovechkin family, to be sure. And there was obviously no hesitation on the Capitals just to say, be gone for as long as you need to be gone.
Yeah. The Caps have been great about. I mean, the Caps will let Ovechkin do it. They just absolutely love doing.
Yeah,
Leonsis and Ovechkin are tight as could be.
Right. But the implications of this are significant for a lot of reasons. Like he was very close to being Ovechkin for having his 10th 50-goal season.
Right.
This takes him out, especially if he's gone for 3 or 4 games.
I know.
Yeah.
I don't know how this would play into it, and I don't think it really matters to the Capitals and whatever.
No, but I think that this is the kind of thing that your players have to pick up. This is where you have to, if you have to play for your captain, you gotta get out there and you gotta make it.
That's essentially what Backstrom said. That was his quote. But the other element here is that the Penguins passed the Capitals last night. They are now on the bubble, on the playoff spot, only a point ahead of the Islanders, 2 points ahead of the Panthers. If the Red Wings win tonight, they would even be 4 points back. So, this has implications on the playoff as well.
I do want to get into the Red Wings thing for a second because this is really interesting. And then there's another thing I want to talk about with Patrick Kane. But
okay, let me just because going along with what Kevin was saying, I watched a bunch of games last night. And we'll talk about that in a little bit because there were a couple games that were really interesting. But Russ, the Islanders playing Ottawa starting Kevin Mandolisi in his first NHL start. They still only scored 2 goals. They had a power play in overtime, couldn't score.
Mandolisi set a record for the second most shots ever.
I know, but
it wasn't like the Islanders weren't getting chances.
No, but this is the only thing, this is emblematic of how the team is because they do get a lot of shots.
Yeah, I know.
They don't get a lot of goals, and he just happens to be the goalie this time.
Right. It's like he's not. This is not the second coming of Terry Sawchuk. That's my point. It's like if this is a good team, they gotta be. Again, this is the argument I use with the Leafs all the time. You have to beat the teams that you are better than. And they're a lot better than the Ottawa Senators, and they lost to them with a goaltender who they pulled out of the AHL because Anton Forsberg had 2 torn MCLs. I mean, these are the math is not working in favor of the Islanders. Is my point.
I think you're right on that, but I mean, is your position that they should make a million trades and try to change it, or you just want to flog Lou Lamoriello, or what is your purpose in your comment?
No, my purpose, which has been the purpose all year, is that the Islanders, even after the Bo Horvat deal, are not good enough offensively, even with one of the top 5 goaltenders in the NHL and a good team defense to make the playoffs. And right now, they've played the most games in the NHL, 56 games, and they're a point behind Pittsburgh for the second wild card. And they've got Florida, Buffalo, and Detroit, as you were saying, only 6 points behind.
Yeah.
So,
my point was, Andy Bo Horvat's great. He's a really good player. He'll help him in the future. But it wasn't like adding Pavel Bure, where you're getting guaranteed goals, and he's going to go on a tear. And Bo Horvat's got 4 points in 5 games, which is really good. But it doesn't help the overall team problem.
Right.
Yeah, I guess I still don't get the point. Like, it's obvious that they're statistically not in good shape to make the playoffs. I mean, whether they got Bo Horvat or not, because they played more games. But, I don't think they can do much more. They're not in a position to make trades, at least in my opinion, especially not after making the Bo Horvat acquisition. So there's really not much they can do. So either those guys step up.
They could make a hockey trade. It's possible.
Yeah, it is, but I don't know. I don't think they can give up defense to get offense. No. I don't think they're in that position. It isn't strong enough. So
and that's something that someone told me the other day. And I talked to a guy who said, he said, how do you make sense of this wild card race? Because everybody basically in there, it's so tight. Like you said, like Buffalo and Detroit, it's kind of crazy that they both have 56 points. Like that doesn't seem possible because Detroit were like, they're having a really subpar year. Buffalo's having a really good year for the most part. They're up and down, but they've been playing better. Yet Detroit, man, that's impressive. That's like they are.
Well, they're only Buffalo. Detroit's got 54. They're 2 points behind Buffalo.
Yeah,
right now they got 56.
No, 54.
Well, on Sportsnet they got 56. I'm sorry.
Okay,
they do. They're 24, 20, and 8.
They have 56 points.
No. I'm sorry.
56 points. They're 6 behind. If they win tonight, they're 4 behind.
Right, and they've got games in hand. They're playing games in hand. So they're really. And I asked him, how do you figure out the games in hand thing? Like, what would you do? And he says, in general, you look at all these teams, they roughly get 2 points a game, roughly, or like 1 point. That's what he does. But so he says the games in hand. He says so Pittsburgh's got. They've got 3 games in hand on Washington. So say they're going to get 5 points out of those 3 or 4 points out of those 3 games altogether.
Mm-hmm.
Like less. That's what and I think that makes sense.
The way that most teams do it, I don't want to take away from how your guy was doing it is they take in the fact that you get 1 point something pro points per game over the course of a season. Like it's not, like they're on a pace that 95 points, for example, in the Eastern Conference is going to get them in.
Right.
So you figure 80, you take 82 divided by 95, and you say teams are likely to get whatever that is.
Right. That is the general thing. But I was asking him about, like, how do you like judge like the Pittsburgh game in hand versus, like, say the Sabres
that's
game
how they do the games in hand. That's how the Red Wings do it.
That's how the Red Wings do it. Okay, yeah. So
they just they just figure that over, if you got 5 games in hand and it's 1.3, then you're going to get 7 points.
Right. So the most part, he says, though, these teams that are all battling for the playoff spots are basically just slightly over 1 point per game. I mean, that's where they are, really. They're right in that realm, right? So they all, you get a game in hand is like, is the 3 games in hand is not 6 points to him, it's 3. And I think that's pretty realistic when you look at these teams, because they're all battling each other.
We had Joe Yurden on the show yesterday, and we talked about the Sabres, and Kevin Adams came out a few days ago or after the bye week and said, we're going to stick with the plan. We're going to not deviate from the plan, even though they're within pretty decent range of a playoff spot. And since then, they've been outscored 12-2, and they've lost both games. And I almost think, and maybe they're completely detached from one another, but this is a young team that wants to make the playoffs. And I'm not saying trade a bunch of players for one shot at the playoffs, but if you go out and you make a deal for a rental when you're a team that has the most cap space in the NHL, I think that would infuse that organization and that young team with a lot of enthusiasm. But instead, they're saying we're going to stick with what we're doing.
Yeah, I just think they're saying that. I still feel like what I said yesterday. I feel like ownership is going to step in and ask them to do something.
Maybe.
I think ownership is distracted in Buffalo.
They might be, but maybe at the deadline they won't be. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, the good news is that this will all be settled because my massive the HockeyBuzz 2065 computer is getting ready to go after the trade deadline, and it'll tell you exactly how the rest of these games are going to play out. So don't that'll be launched on trade deadline day. So
HAL 9000.
It'll project the final standings as it always has, almost incredibly to the point. Actually,
how do you still buy punch cards? That's the question.
Oh, it's really hard. They're really difficult.
Are there a lot of dangling chads at the
house? Unfortunate thing is my PhD wife is the one who has to do it because I don't understand Excel. But I give her all the stuff to do, and she puts it together, and she spends a lot of time on it. She does a really good job with it. So it's something. And the last couple of years has been incredibly accurate. So let's see where it goes.
Yeah, it's the EC algorithm.
There was some news just before the show started. Mikey Anderson, the defenseman from the LA Kings, was extended for 8 years at an AAV of $4.1 million. And Kev, this deal is very reminiscent of the Matthias Samuelsson deal with the Sabres. With the Sabres, it was 7 years and around $4.2 million. Samuelson's a bigger, more physical defenseman, but they're similar types. I mean, Mikey Anderson is never going to score, is never going to lead the NHL in defensive scoring, but he's a solid two-way defenseman, and this is a good signing.
Yeah, I think it's really good too, and I think it could be a favorable contract for the Kings, over the long haul of that contract. So, I mean, because he's going to be a very steady defenseman, and the average salary just keeps climbing up. So
it does keep creeping up.
Right before the Super Bowl, I meant to tell you guys this because I think this is kind of fun. We all know that odds and for betting are all based on the what's being laid on what team. That they adjust the odds so that they're not in risk of losing a lot of money. They're trying to get right in that middle ground there where they make money no matter who wins the game. And but before, when they have to set the odds, it's always amazing how well they do. And of course, I've explained that it's all based on mathematics and what's previously happened in all the games, and they don't take into account injuries because injuries occur all the time. So those are built in to that. You don't have to worry about that because that has been built into the mathematics that's occurred in the 40 previous years. So anyway, they do all that. But this is what startled me. Bob Duff wrote this story, like FanDuel and Sports Games. You know how many times they ran a computer simulation to come up with the original odds on the Philadelphia Eagles versus the Kansas City Chiefs? 20,000 times.
Really, 20,000 times?
They ran 20,000 simulations, and then they
Wow.
came up with the original spread.
But I want to tell you
Wow.
something funny about this, Kev. So on the Fox broadcast for that, everybody picked the Eagles. I'm in a group of hockey writers and baseball writers, and we all picked Kansas City. Like, it's really
Yeah. No, yeah.
that's how you knew it was going to be really fun.
I like I said, I picked the Eagles, but I mean, you guys remember what I said? I said my instinctual thing that my gut that I would usually go to if it wasn't like my own team would go with Kansas City.
Yeah.
I don't know that's like, but your own team, I just
But it
sometimes
just
get.
showed how close it was, and that's why they
Yeah.
probably needed to run it 20,000 times because they knew it was that close.
And that's what
Bob, Russ and I had the same attitude about it. I really took the Chiefs simply because of Mahomes.
Yeah.
He is a playmaker.
He's
And-
amazing. I mean, that performance was just absolutely.
Yeah,
That was
and,
like that was
well,
that was what's his name hitting the home run and walking off the with one leg and walking off the field. That
Yeah.
was that level to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Anyway, so let's a couple things. First of all, I wanted to talk about Dylan Larkin for a second, and the reason is this: I was just incredibly impressed with him the other night with his words about the shooting in at East Michigan. Kevin, do you want to address that at all? I thought that was pretty incredible.
Well, I mean, in Michigan, we've gone through in the recent times the Oxford high school shooting. And, Dylan Larkin is a Michigan native. And even though he went to the University of Michigan, and there's a rivalry there, that, having this shooting at Michigan State, like, that was what, they're on the road, and you can imagine somebody telling them at Michigan State, there's an active shooter because, at 10 o'clock, they weren't even sure where that guy was.
Right.
So it was, and, they reacted. And, I mean, that's why, people ask me why I feel like he's going to be signed. Well, I feel like he's going to be signed because he belongs to the state of Michigan. And although those kind of issues do not impact Yzerman's thinking, he's at some point going to have to pay homage to that this is a guy who was born and raised here, went to college here in Michigan, only a year, but, he's very popular here. And he's a good player. Like, you can quibble about whether he's a 1A or a 1B or a second liner, but he's productive. He's fast. He's a good leader. Guys like him. And I think ultimately, you can't let him walk away when he wants to be here. Like, I think he played this correctly by saying right up front, I want to stay here. This is my state. I want to play. I mean, how's Yzerman going to look if they don't get him signed?
That was the thing I was going to ask, Kev, because I have all the respect in the world for Steve Yzerman and all of his accomplishments in Tampa, and I think he's going about it the right way in Detroit. But he doesn't strike me as having 1 ounce of sentimentality in him. And that, in this situation, I think you sort of have to pay homage to Larkin being a Michigan guy and wanting to stay there, and that might be worth an extra $500,000 a year. But I don't think Yzerman thinks that. No,
I think you're right on, Mike. I think he views it, he's looking ahead. He's seen he's going to have to pay Sider and Raymond, and they're really high on Marco Casper, and he'll be over here and within 3 years. If you look now, I think one of the alarming trends, and we saw this before, is the big price teams are paying players before they're really proven. And we've seen it. Cousins. We saw it in Minnesota with
Boldy.
Yeah, exactly. Boldy as well. And, those are big contracts. And I know I've talked to a couple of GMs, and, they want to whap me the side of the head, too. And he goes, that's what the sports writers are always guilty of. And we are. We do not project ahead the way the general managers do. Like, they're constantly thinking about what the average salary is going to be. We never think like that. And I know I'm guilty of that. I always have to remind myself, okay, the salary cap in a few years is going to be this. And that's the way they view things. And so I get all that. But, I think Yzerman thinks about that, about all the players' things. And he just doesn't have room for sentimentality. And, I think this is costly because I do not think he will trade Larkin. I think
I can tell you what I think might make him happy, Kev, is he still has to give him, the 8-year deal, and maybe he pays him a lot of that money up front the next 4 years, just in case his projections of Larkin come true, and then he could trade him.
I'm with you on that too, Russ. I mean, I have said consistently here that I think a Forsberg deal to get this done. Yeah. Like, give Larkin those $10 million salaries now, and then ask him to take a little less so that the average salary is a little lower. But he's one of the highest paid players next season.
Right.
He's in that $10 million.
I do.
So,
have the Red Wings ever done that?
Pardon me?
Have the Red Wings ever done that?
Not that I'm aware of.
Did they make that offer? The famous rumored offer to Peter Forsberg? Did they make an offer to Forsberg like that?
No, they knew that Forsberg has said, and I think sent word to the Red Wings that he was one of those guys. He actually said, and was confirmed that the Red Wings are just the one team I won't play for.
I remember that.
Yeah, and he was very sincere about it. So
I love when things like that. Actually, I love when players actually stick to something like that. Honestly, it just makes it because you watch these games, you watch them fighting, and you just want to believe it's real. You want to believe that the real hatred is there. The real hatred was there. Yeah,
I would say this though. I am with you can never be 100% certain of everything, but I'll say I'm 90% or 88.5% certain that if Mike Ilitch was still alive and owning the Red Wings, Dylan Larkin would be signed.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, that's interesting because we've talked about the new owner GM relationships. Like we have like what we have in Philadelphia is there's certain things that I know would be the case here in Philly that just with Ed Snyder that aren't the case. Like I know I fully believe that if Ed Snyder was here, Claude Giroux ends his career here. I really think he does.
I don't know, because he already was sort of in the background of Comcast at that point. I don't know if that's the case. I mean, I'm not trying to contradict you. I'm just saying I don't know if Ed Snyder would have been that present.
I was really lucky because Ed liked me a lot, so I got to spend 5 games in his box with him.
But that was a long time ago.
No, but I know. But just getting to know him, and my wife, went out to dinner with him and his wife, and my wife, and then just getting to know him, he was so into players who really did the kind of stuff that Giroux did. Like Giroux was like that guy, like Larkin's that guy too. It's just like that's why I think it makes sense, Kevin. To like, I don't know. You don't know it's the right move. Like I don't know if it's the right move to keep Giroux here, but I think he would have found a way to keep him here. I think he would have found a way to just like. You agree with me, Kev?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I know what Russ is saying too. The corporate deal, because once you start selling, like when you're the individual owner, you do what you want and everything else. And then you get this idea, oh my God, look how much money I can get if I bring in a corporate entity, and you do that and you think you can still hold the reins, and it's a little bit more difficult than you think.
Yep.
So wasn't he scared everybody at Comcast. He was terrified.
That was changing because the Brizgalov thing was a disaster.
Yes. Yeah, that's true. But I was in a meeting one time that he let me come into with him and Comcast people, and the Phillies and all that was being talked about also. And they were intimidated by him because these guys had nowhere near the experience in business that Ed Snyder had. It was just straight up. Whatever he said about the Flyers, I think went.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would say if it was the Ed Snyder that was in charge most of the time, but at the end, he wasn't as forceful as he. Yeah,
well, when he got sick, he definitely. But he still had, at that point, he still had people like in there that he was ahead that were doing his bidding. Like Paul Holmgren was still working very hard to try to keep Ed Snyder's will going and stuff like that. Anyway, so I was just impressed. I was impressed with Dylan's stand-up.
No, he's sharp and he's a good guy.
I mean, you can definitely tell, and I think that there would be a backlash. If Yzerman doesn't get this done, I feel like there would be.
Yeah, it'll be interesting because right now he still walks on water here.
I know.
And, so it'll be interesting to see because again, I just can't imagine him trading him. So right. I think it would be a Stamkos type deal where he just lets him go and see what happens, and
And then he comes in. Now I've got this interesting thing broke last night, and I did some research into it. I could not confirm it. I don't know if it was confirmed by any of the insiders or not. I just heard, somebody told me they heard about it, so you guys can tell me. But that Patrick Kane came out, or basically what came out was that there was only 2 teams that Patrick Kane would go to.
It hasn't seemed to be confirmed.
The Rangers and Toronto. I know, and you guys heard it was Rangers and the Leafs, right? Was the 2 teams.
Yeah,
I don't believe it, but I just want to discuss it with you guys.
I don't believe it. Yeah.
This was the report that came out from Carlo Koliakovo, former NHL player who's on Toronto radio, and then Paul Bissonnette also chimed in. I haven't heard whether anybody like Pierre or Elliott or Chris Johnston have reported it. I'm skeptical because, first of all, the Leafs don't have a lot of cap space. The Rangers are not going to trade for him because they already have Tarasenko. Right. The Leafs have limited cap space. They would have to trade Kane through a third team. That would mean additional assets. I don't think Chicago is giving him away for nothing. So I know that Kane has a no move clause, but Elliot Friedman made a pretty good point. Kane, with his injury situation right now, which a lot of people are dismissing, but it is a factor, and he is not at full speed. And the Leafs are a high-paced team, and they're going to be playing against a very physical team like Tampa, who, if you watch that game last night against Colorado, they're going to beat you into the dirt. So I don't think it's a fit.
This question was asked: why are we reporting on something that you don't believe to be true? Well, that's exactly why. That's exactly what. No, I don't. No, I mean that's exactly why I'm reporting on it. And I don't know if it's a made up rumor or not. Like I listen. I don't know. I'm not going to judge people on. Well,
it's out there. Okay, it's out there in the ether, so we have to discuss it. But I think Kev. I mean, Patrick Kane.
Yeah. Yeah, but both things could be true. I mean, Patrick Kane could want to go to the Maple Leafs and Rangers,
right?
And the Maple Leafs just probably think that wouldn't be a good fit. I mean, what's wrong with that? I mean, I think that's right. Yeah. I mean, players have wish lists, and I don't understand. He's an American band, so to speak. So I'm not sure why Patrick would want to go to the Maple Leafs, but. Maybe just because it's a premier franchise and they play an offensive style. He
also grew up in Buffalo, Kev. The Maple Leafs have a certain they have a certain aura.
It's Buffalo, and he's very good friends with Austin Matthews. In the summer, they train with the same skills coach. So
that I believe, because I'm not sure the close proximity. He's pretty an American.
Yes.
Can you imagine the excitement of play? He could play with Matthews and Marner. Like, can you imagine that line? I mean, just like that.
Yeah,
that's got to be thrilling, exciting to think about.
I'm waiting 7 more days until he tells the Blackhawks what he's going to tell them, because we still don't even know that.
Yeah,
we don't know.
Don't you think he's going to go somewhere though?
I do.
I'm 50-50. I'm 50-50.
Yeah, I mean, he likes to play. Like I said the other day, he's one of those guys. But the Austin Matthews thing does make a lot of sense to me, because
it does, and just the fact that it's a really good team, and it's an offensive team, and it's an exciting team.
75%, then yes, Kev, he's going to go somewhere. If he's feeling less than that, then I'm not sure.
Well, he said publicly that his injury has been overblown. Okay, so he did say I think he told the Athletic that.
That's what he told the Athletic. Now this doesn't mean though, and again, because even if this is true, and I don't know who started this thing or whatever, but even if it is true, which is possible because we don't really know. We're not Patrick Kane. And the Canadian media doesn't have the greatest relationship with Patrick Kane always. So I think that there's not a lot of people like Kevin's probably the reporter who would know who's closest with USA Hockey than anyone. But the reality is here, it still doesn't mean that he couldn't end up going to Vegas, like just because or something like that, because the reality is, like you said, Kevin, if he wants to play and he's suddenly put in this, it depends on the situation he's given. Like if he's shown Vegas, he might be like, that's pretty fun. I don't mind hanging out in Vegas for 3 months.
Patrick Kane has the hammer here. He has the no move clause.
Right. He does.
This is Giroux part deux.
But if he wants to play, Active right, he's going to have to make some decisions. And you can't rule out that he would. I mean, you don't know what, like we talked before, Joe Pavelski could call. Right. Here, you don't realize how tight the team is here. Ryan Suter's here.
Exactly.
We've got a good bunch of guys. Like we're just one score short. We could get to the final. Somebody.
Agreed.
You just don't know who will
Yeah, you don't know.
call him and make
And,
the case.
no.
So
Yeah, I mean,
And the thing is that, I mean, that the reality is, like, I'm with you, Kevin, that I think that at the end of the day, he's going to sit back and he's going to say, do I want a chance to play for a
right.
Stanley Cup? And do I want a chance to also up his value? I mean, he's going to get, if he goes to a team and leads a team to a Stanley Cup,
he doesn't need to up his value. I mean, okay,
he doesn't need to up his value, but it's right now, if he doesn't go anywhere, people are going to think he's hurt. They're going to think he's hurt. They're going to think his injury's bad. That's what people are going to think because they know Patrick Kane's the competitor. Don't you think so, Kev? I mean, there's going to be.
Well, I mean, I think it's this. Like right now, no one's given him, 7 years to 10 million.
Right.
Like, so it's not.
Yeah.
So his value is going to be down a little bit, and the question is whether anybody would give him 7 years.
No,
I think he's going to the Rangers for less money, and I think that's already done. Like, I think that's what's going to happen. But is it possible that he gets mad at the Rangers based on this? What happened here?
Yeah, it's possible.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, yeah, that's hard to know. I know he wanted.
So yeah, he could be mad.
I think
again, here's my big question: Why was he waiting this 10 days?
I think
we're overemphasizing the 10 days.
Well, he said it.
Well, no, they said it for both the guys, right? They said it for him and they said it for Taves, right? They're both going to give answers next week, right? That's what's going to happen.
Well, he probably doesn't know where he wants to go, or
I think he's thrown. I think he was thrown by the Rangers thing. I really do. I think that threw him.
Yeah,
and I think that that he has to reevaluate thing. I think, like, for him, he was kind of coasting. I talked to another player on that team, and I even heard Seth Jones during the All-Star media thing say something about, like, do you think Patrick Kane will get traded? He's like, well, it depends if the team that he wants to go to wants him. He said that flat out, like that's, and I heard that from somebody else. So I think he was thrown. So now I think he's reevaluating.
Well, I'll tell you, because I watched Boston Dallas, and I wanted to talk about that game for a second, just because, I think that if that is the Stanley Cup final, we're in for a hell of a ride. But you can see the slot where Patrick Kane would fit in right away. They've got that number one line of Hintz, Robertson, and Pavelski, so they're not going to touch that. And Jamie Benn is having a comeback season with playing with Wyatt Johnston and I think it's Dellandrea. He would slot in with Tyler Seguin, and it's Tyler Seguin with Mason Marchment, and I can't remember who they were playing there. But I'm telling you, like, you put Kane with Seguin and Marchment, you've got 3 lines. I mean, I don't know if there's a team in the league that has 3 better lines than that. That's pretty damn good.
Yeah. And Boston has been interested as well, and
yes,
so it would be interesting. Although Boston reported this morning they're interested in the Blue Jacket defenseman.
Gavrikov.
Gavrikov,
I mean, they're being linked with everybody, though. Let's be fair. Boston's being linked with almost everybody.
They've got their nose in a lot of different situations, and I think anything is possible. But I think they have 2 goals. They would love to get one more prime scorer, and they would love to get a guy to fit in their top 4 and to really make their defense.
Yeah, I mean, look, they're legitimately a player or 2 away from winning the cup for sure.
Well,
but does anybody else realize? I mean, I know they're bound to have slumps, but they are slumping a little bit right now. They're not at their best, right? I mean, they've lost like 3 or 4 or something like that, which is for them significant because they've only lost 8 all year. Yeah, I mean, is it possible that they ran out of steam? I mean, it's not like
not based on
many guys.
Yeah, I mean, they don't have
Zaka as an example, like I had mentioned. Is now like another guy they can count on when the other guys are slumping. Adding Lindholm was now another premier defenseman you can count on if McAvoy was going to slump. Like, they have too many guys now.
And they're doing all this without Jake DeBrusk, and Jake DeBrusk is a top 6 forward for them. So it's like you just plug him in. I mean, they're extremely deep. That goal that Pasternak scored last night was unbelievable.
And he's still looking for his deal, so he's motivated.
Yeah. So, but
we don't even talk about that.
Right,
because everybody knows it's going to get done. I can't. It's like Larkin. I can't. I would love to think, Kev, that Pasternak would go someplace else, but he's not. They're going to pay him because he's one of the best 3 or 4 forwards in the league.
Yeah. No,
part of the deal is Pasternak's going to have to work the Dunkin' Donuts window like Affleck did.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah, especially with Bergeron
Right.
could retire any year now, and Marchand is into his 30s now, and so they're going to have to rebuild a new program around Pasternak. So
They are.
I would think they're going to get that done, and he seems to want to stay there as well. I haven't heard him say it as definitely as say Larkin did, but it seemed pretty clear that he wanted to stay there. So
Pasternak, McAvoy, but Kev, we talked about it on Monday about the being held out for trade related reasons for Chychrun.
Okay.
That still hasn't happened, and now yesterday Gavrikov being held out for trade related reasons. How do you think this is playing with other general managers? Because I mean, and the league, because you would think that the league would have a problem 2.5 weeks out holding guys out.
Yeah, just to be clear on this is new.
Yes.
Like, we've held players out before, but it's usually a trade is imminent.
Or like one game, like maybe the last game before the trade deadline.
Yeah, and now like they said, we're going to hold out in Columbus. We're going to hold them out this week. Is what they said. This week.
I mean, I talked to somebody who with Chychrun, they're like, if you didn't get traded till the trade deadline, you're picking up somebody because of the All-Star break and everything. You're picking up somebody who hasn't played in a month.
Yeah,
but at least he's healthy. That's the only thing.
That's the I agree with you on that, and I do think that it's going to be talked about.
Yeah.
That's going to be at the next GM meeting.
Yeah.
This is going to come up. Like, come on, like what are we doing here?
I mean, it's not really the paying fans is always comes up in this situation. Like fans do pay to see the best players.
Well, and it impacts the playoff races.
It does. It impacts the race.
Fans, they're being honest with that. They are announcing these guys aren't playing. So fans, if you're a fan of that guy and you're expecting to see him, now.
But if you already bought a ticket 6 months ago,
but you could sell them. I mean, that was always my argument. One of my arguments, even though they always they didn't shoot down my arguments, they just said it doesn't matter. We're not going to change with regard to injuries. You have to view fans as stockholders. They essentially are. They create the business. They create the business. So, as a season ticket holder, if he wants to look, he's going to sell 8 or 10 games, but he's a huge Crosby fan.
Yep.
And then Crosby's out, but and if he knew he was going to be out for 3 or 4 weeks, or a projected 3 or 4 weeks, he could sell those tickets in that time period. And okay, that's when I'm not going to go.
Yeah.
But when you don't provide any information, then he's left wondering. Now, the problem with my argument is that fans don't care. Like fans don't see it that way. They like that there's that they're not told, and they see it the same way the league does. So
let's just hope that load management doesn't come to the NHL like it is in the NBA, because good luck trying to sell tickets for a Lakers game when LeBron says.
Oh, I hate load. So here's the one thing. I talked to somebody who about the Chychrun situation this morning, and they said to me that they have heard two things. One, which we talked about before, which is that they overplayed their hand a little bit with LA, and and that they don't really have anything. The other is that they do have a deal in place, and they're waiting for that team to clear space, and that's why they can do this conference.
I mean, that is possible. I mean, in this right now, the way things are,
Yeah, there are, and Elliot Friedman threw out this thing yesterday, and I did some research, and I think it was one of those things. Elliot sometimes throws out things that he knows, pretending just to be speculating with it.
Yeah.
This one felt like it, because
when he's surmising something, there's more.
Yeah, he was surmising. He's like, well, what if Columbus is trying to trade Gavrikov to get the pieces and to go for Chychrun, because we know Columbus had a deal for Chychrun at the draft almost happened. So that makes some, and then suddenly Gavrikov is not playing. And it was just kind of fascinating. And we don't think of Chychrun with Columbus, but why not? That's a place that would make some sense for them.
Yeah, that would sure upset the apple cart for Chychrun.
Oh, it would really change things.
Why do you say it would upset the apple cart for Chychrun?
Well, because I think he's counting on going to a contender or a team, or in the case of Ottawa, he has some familiarity there.
Then it also changes what the contenders are going to look at. Then they're going to all of a sudden look at Klingberg next, probably.
I mean, look at the Metro division. I mean, look at Columbus is now,
Let me really bring this up about Klingberg, and because we know what he can do, but I asked somebody that I trust about that. He goes, I haven't heard a single rumor about Klingberg.
I'm
not
with you.
One.
I'm with that person. I have not either.
To me,
he said and then I read the Seattle newspaper account of way they look at it, and they were talking about they're looking for a third pair defenseman, and that they just, I think, acquired that guy.
They did.
They did. So they made. I mean, they mentioned the Klingberg in the summer, but they said, they've been relatively happy with their top four. So, I don't know what to make of that. But I've not heard one single team.
I will say this: if Anaheim gets stuck with Klingberg and they can't trade him, that was just a waste of time for them. Then
it was also a waste for Klingberg. He thought he was going to use it as a springboard to go someplace else.
Yeah, that really could backfire.
I haven't heard a single rumor either. So therefore, I have 6 teams that I have on the rumor chart for Klingberg because I'm just guessing.
I still think literally last minute somebody is going to want it.
Well, I mean, even if you get to the end and suddenly Klingberg's still there, and all of a sudden the price is like a 3rd round pick or something.
Yeah, right.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, it's like the last scarf at Christmas. It's like if you can't get all those things, you might just settle for Klingberg.
Like I look at Carolina, Florida, Edmonton. These are even Nashville. Like what are the thoughts about teams like that could possibly step up for him? Because there basically are. Basically, there's Edmonton.
We mentioned Washington.
Washington for sure. If Carlson isn't 100%, I think Klingberg.
Right, Washington's good. I mean, we know basically you've got this Edmonton, Boston, Pittsburgh, all looking for defensemen. All 3 of those teams, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then you have McCabe. You've got perhaps Carlson. You've got Luke Shen, who's like you got Gavrikov. And you got Chikrin. You got a lot of defensemen. So I think that people are like, by the time you get to Klingberg, he's like beyond all. He's not as attractive as any of those guys because he doesn't have.
Well, he is if your power play is suffering and you.
I mean, I think Florida. Honestly, I think Florida would be a good fit for him. Like, I think that would be a place that would really, because they could use him.
Yeah, but I don't know if they had I
don't know how they could do it either. But I'm just saying.
Money-wise, they need a 3rd team.
They would need a 3rd team, but they've done that before. They've got involved with Carolina before to help them with Kotkaniemi. Remember,
Anaheim will probably retain, but then Florida has no pick, so
yeah, it wouldn't be. It would have to be something else. I mean, but they do have some prospects. I don't know. It would be interesting to see.
They don't have picks. That's the Anaheim has a lot of prospects. They may want picks.
Yeah. But
I think you mentioned Luke Shen. I think it's funny, but he's the guy. Who was that guy that got the defenseman that would always get moved every year? Mike Sillinger.
Adrian Coyne used to
No, it wasn't Adrian Coyne. This guy was on Sopel.
Oh, Brett Sopel. Yeah.
Brett Sopel, yes.
Yeah, Brett Sopel.
He had a good shot. He could work the power play.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think Luke Shen is the physical equivalent of that.
Yeah.
I mean, because I've heard his name everywhere.
Oh, yeah, he's everywhere.
Any team could use him, and any team could fit him in salary-wise.
Right. Yeah.
I heard the Islanders with him actually is the team I heard. But they would make a move for Luke Shen.
The prevailing opinion is Boston, Calgary, Toronto, and Tampa. And all teams obviously that have very limited cap space, and especially Toronto, a team that needs physicality more than anything.
I think Tampa would have the inside track because
apparently they're not as maybe they've had him one too many times, Russ. Honestly, watching that game last night, a young guy like Perbix playing on their bottom pairing. They really don't need much. I mean, they're going to add. We know that they're going to add.
All right, but here's what I would add. While that game was great, and it was great, Tampa, Colorado was fantastic. There was no Makar playing, right? So that game probably goes to a long overtime if it's a playoff game or it'd have to be Stanley Cup. If it's a Stanley Cup game again, and who knows how it works out. But it does show that both teams are on that level again, and Colorado's really close. And Tampa's already there, which shocks the heck out of me that they're not showing anywhere whatsoever. And so I still don't think that means that Perbix, they would take him over Shen, though. I still think at the end of the day, Perbix could still end up being the 7th if they have an inside track on Shen because, again, they're in it to actually win the whole thing. They're not in it to just sort of look good.
Yeah. I think they're going to try to get a forward. I think they're going to be looking for a little more grit. That's why I think don't rule out Bertuzzi for them.
Yeah. especially if Detroit retains 50%. I mean,
that's a given. That's a given on all these deals, Mike. You don't even have to say that. Let's just stipulate that they're all doing that. So.
The most fantastic thing that you could do with the HAL 9000 before the deadline is to calculate all the salary retention that's going to happen throughout the league.
We should take it over under on how much salary will be retained on this deadline. That would be pretty funny. Because it will be a lot. This is going to be a crazy amount of salary retention.
Well, I mean, and every big name player is going to be salary retention. So every one of them. So
I know. I mean, I think the other team you have to look at that no one is talking about is Calgary, and Calgary I think is going to. I mean, I watched them play last night against I watched that Ottawa game. Is that 2 nights ago now? I'm getting not even know.
Calgary Rangers last week.
No, Calgary. Calgary, Ottawa. I thought it was 2 nights ago, maybe. And watching him in that game, I was like I was pretty impressed. With they're close. They have a lot, but they're obviously in that game Markstrom kind of let them down.
They have issues. Zach. They are close. They have good coaching, obviously. Markstrom,
their coach. There's rumors about the coach being let go too.
But not during season. They're not going to fire him.
Suspended him.
They did just suspend him, but he could go back to the farm, Mike. You know that.
Yeah.
But here's the way I look at it, though. Jacob Markstrom, I still don't trust him. End of the day, I don't.
Yeah.
When they were in Detroit, they got there 2 days early, and Sutter was in the press box watching the game against the Oilers. And he was intently watching that game. Like he's not coasting.
No.
And
he went on a trip with the AHL team.
Yeah, he's engaged. He is totally engaged.
He is.
Trying to win this. And I hear a lot of discussion with them, especially in the Canadian media, has talked a lot about Calgary. Going to do something. The team that I'm really starting to be intrigued with, and I know Mike will disagree on this, but and I know they lost their last game against Montreal, but they're playing again. They played the Red Wings in Detroit, and I saw them live and was really impressed with how they played. I thought their defense, it looks to me better, more cohesive than it has in the past. But they are 9-1-2 in their last 12 games, and that's the Edmonton Oilers.
Right.
9-1-2, and they lost their last
9-1-2.
Yeah, they played very well. They went in a 6-game span earlier this month where they scored 31 goals. That's 5.1 goals per game in that span. And they're right now over the 13 games, they're averaging 4.5 goals per game. And they're giving up less than 3 goals a game. Their defense has been stronger. Their goaltending has been better. Holland, as I mentioned before, was really kind of heartened about how this team has kind of come together after their injuries that they had earlier in the season. So they've been pretty happy with that. And I expect he's going to try to make some deals. I think Bertuzzi is a possibility unless everyone comes to an agreement that is going to be a problem with immigration. I don't think they really know the answer to that. I think they're almost afraid to ask to draw the attention to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think you're right about that.
Yeah.
I think you're right about that.
It's going to be interesting. But if he doesn't do that, there's a lot of players out there that if you add them to the Edmonton, lineup, so. Yeah,
if I was to ask you, Kevin, just pure gut instinct based on what you know about Edmonton and everyone there, the percentage of chances that during the season, within the next 2 weeks, Erik Karlsson is an Edmonton Oiler.
I think it's a possibility. I do. I think they're intrigued by trying, but. The one thing I've said about Ken Holland, and I really respect him, but he has not made a lot of hockey trades. Right. Like when he was in Detroit, he made a lot of trades, but it was, okay, I'll give you my first round pick and a good prospect and this third line forward, and then you give me this rental player. Right. He's made a lot of those deals, but name me player trades he's made. That's not been his forte. That's been David Poile. That's been Jim Rutherford. Those are the guys that make player trades. So So I don't know whether he could do that, if he's going to be able to pull off that Erik Karlsson thing, because that's going to involve more than just, first round picks.
Oh, yeah, it's got to be. I mean,
well, it's going to involve something that San Jose doesn't want to do, which is salary retention. I mean, they
do want to do it, Mike. They just don't want to do it without getting major compensation.
Yeah, that's like I've heard everything from like it's a 1 first round pick if you take it in salary, it's 2 first round picks if you want the salary retention. I've heard that. That was from a pretty reliable source too. So that's like I don't think it's 3 first round picks like some people are saying. I don't think that's
no. The only thing
Greer has refuted that publicly.
Yeah.
That
the only thing I can come close to for what you were saying about Holland, Kev, is Duncan Keith. The Duncan Keith trade.
Duncan Keith trade, yeah.
That's the only thing I could say is the one.
I mean, he also made that. Didn't Ken Holland make that trade with Carolina? A pretty big trade way back. Or was that Eisman? I'm not sure. That sent like Lindholm to. I'm confused. No, actually, I'm confused. Calgary with Carolina. Sorry.
No.
Yeah, that's right.
No,
wrong
Kevin's right. A lot of his deals were like trading a first round pick to Tampa for Kyle Quincy or something like that. It's always, I'll give up a low first because our first is always going to be in the bottom 5 or 6 because we have a record. But so you could throw away the first round pick now.
But I'll stick with my position on this. If they can get anybody who can get Karlsson down to $7 million or less.
Right.
Or 7 million, even 7.5 maybe. I mean, you would not like it there. But getting him for 4 years at 7.5, I think you make that deal if you can make it happen because he's playing at that level and 100-point defenseman, would
you give up 2 first round picks if you're Edmonton for him?
I would. I would for sure.
I would too. If you can get that contract to where you want it.
Yeah. If that's 4 years, I mean, just think, like he's still a valuable player, and in 4 years, like he'll still be valuable. He may not be 100 points, but he'll be valuable in 4 years. Like what he is. So
somebody said to me, because I constantly bring up, especially with guys like Karlsson or other players that are injury prone. Okay, you're going to trade significant assets, and it's a guy who could sneeze and break a rib. Well, the whole thing here is. If Edmonton does, trade for him and then he gets injured, they have LTIR. So, it's throwing away money, or throwing away assets, but it's maybe worth a shot for them to trade for him because he is such a talent. But I don't think.
You got to factor in all these things. Number one, is you're probably over the next couple of years when you're giving up these picks are going to be later in the first round, not at the top. I mean, you've got really good players there. Number one, there's only a 70% shot, and it's probably much lower than it. I've never seen any statistics about picking after 20, whether that's better than 70%. Worse than 70%. I don't know the answer to that, but I would guess it is. And it's a proven commodity in Karlsson. Now, you can pick apart his defensive game if you want, but if you have the puck. It's one of Wayne Gretzky's famous quotes. If I have the puck, the other team can't score. That's right. Defense. Right. So, there is some value there. He fits perfectly with the Edmonton Oilers. And, to have a player of that ilk for $7 million plus, if you can get it to do, I just think it's a desirable thing. It makes that team really dangerous.
Well, actually, I'm going to tell you, I saw some stats. Analytics wise, defensive stats, like stats where he's breaking up passes, stats where he's, you said, he has the puck retrievals, those things. He's in like the top 15. In some cases, he's in the top 10 in some of these statistical areas. That's why you're not hearing the backlash on him anymore.
Yeah, no, it made that be. I just haven't really paid that much attention. I would tell you the night I saw him, he was great at both ends, on a live. But to be honest, I don't see a lot of his games at night. They're a little late for me, but
I've seen a few. I haven't seen a lot.
So I don't know.
Been San Jose fans. I watched,
but he's like I see it a lot differently now that he's in the middle of this season than I would have saw it at the beginning of the season.
Yeah. I mean, do you think we're at over 20%?
Over 20% for what?
That Karlsson gets traded to Edmonton?
I would think so.
Yeah. Okay. That's pretty.
Yeah,
significant.
I mean, because if there was ever a guy built to play with the Oilers, it's Carl.
I mean, doesn't it feel like that? Doesn't it feel? I agree with you. That it just feels like that,
Yeah.
and it feels like the kind of thing that'll happen in a way like that you actually sit back and you do they become the favorite to come out of the Western Conference if they get Carlson? I think they do.
Oh,
Yes.
no.
Yes.
I mean, it's so wide open that
Yes.
I would say yes.
Yes.
I would say yes, definitely. I mean, they
I
already are one of the favorites.
I-
so-
Why would you say no, Mike?
Because I think there are a couple teams. Well, one even without a trade, I think would be better than them. That's Dallas. And if Colorado makes the trade that we're expecting for a number 2 center, I still think they're better than.
Okay,
them.
but Dallas will have a better record. But you're telling me if the Oilers with Erik Karlsson, because again, you don't know what the record's going to be when they have Karlsson. You're going to tell me you still think Dallas is better?
I think Dallas would be better in goal and better on defense with Heiskanen and Lindell and everything that they have than Edmonton, even with Erik Karlsson.
I think that's very arguable. I do.
Well, but it is. But you can make that argument, Mike. I mean, that's a fair argument. That's a really fair argument because they're a really good team.
Very
and they seem to have all the components. I guess I would just say, just from the excitement value of Carlson bringing that in, getting everybody be fired up. I mean, it's kind of like, I mean, he's much older, but it's kind of like adding Cale Makar to your lineup.
Yeah, I mean,
So
we haven't seen a quarterback like that, like passing to those kind of receivers, like since Paul Coffey and Gretzky. You know, like we haven't had. I mean, or Paul Coffey and Mario Lemieux. Like that.
I mean, 91-92, Leach had 102 points. And
Leach and Messier even.
And Carlson's on pace for 108.
Yeah, but the Rangers up front didn't have quite the.
No, not the level of
not the level.
But close.
I'll tell you another team that I think he would be an unbelievable fit for would be Toronto's offense. So, that would be fun as well.
They'd have to have 4 teams to trade with.
Can you imagine the points that Paul Coffey and Brian Leach would have put up without a 2-line pass?
Oh my God!
Yeah, I mean, just think about that. Like that's like a crazy. I mean, that's like because some of these like Carlson. One of his things that he's really good at is incredibly long passes. Like he'll make passes like
Don't you think though, Eck? I mean, the argument I would make that is, defense. The teams play more cautious defensively than they were playing in the 80s. Like. Guys are so mindful of that pass.
Yeah.
Like one guy.
Now they're aware of it.
I mean, the difference in the game now compared to the 80s, like, and it's funny, Dylan Larkin has talked about this year. You got to run the gauntlet now.
Yeah.
In the video room when you make a bad play. And, they all have to sit through that. And so I mean, you look at every play now. And so, it's guys, they don't want to be that guy that gets singled out for not.
Yeah. And this is no slight to Paul Coffey, but, Makar, had he been playing then, would be faster than anybody in the NHL. And Makar now can do everything Coffey did and better.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting one. Is Cale Makar better than Paul Coffey? That's something we'll have to. That's a good
He's
matchup.
More talented, like he just is. He doesn't have the numbers yet.
Yeah, I mean, it's Paul Coffey had a lot of magic in his stick, though. That's
absolutely. But so does Cale Makar.
I'll give you a great quote from Scotty Bowman, and I remember when he said it to me, and he laughed when he said it. He was clearly joking. He goes, "I know this is impossible, but I swear it seems like Paul Coffey is the only player I've ever seen who can pick up speed when he's coasting."
Yeah,
And then he just roared, like he just thought,
He did though.
But I knew exactly what he meant.
I do too. Like I mean, even watching him in Philly towards the end of his career, he could still do that. He sort of like got into a crouch, and it was like a downhill skier getting into the crouch. It like kind of like it did. Accelerate.
It is impossible, but I know the point. It looked like he did because boy, he'd get low and then. So
I mean, I think it was a weight shift thing too, though. I mean, it's not. I don't know. It's completely impossible. I mean, it just seems like
I mean, you'd have to get some physics people, but I think it is impossible. But
yeah, I mean, it really was something.
Can't say
it's like a fastball rising as it gets to the plate, Kev. It's physiological.
Yeah.
I mean, here's what I would say to the chat room. Somebody's saying Makar's not as good as Coffey. Well, he won the Conn Smythe and the Norris last year. He's a point a game this year. A point a game defenseman in this league is not easy to do.
Well,
Coffey was incredible, though.
He was. There's no question.
It's hard to compare players of years because, Makar sees the game and has to play differently than Paul did.
Makar is more than a point a game in his career. It's a young career, but in this era, that's hard to do.
Yeah, no. I mean, it's all game, but
and Makar's played with great players, but Coffee played with better players.
Yeah.
So I mean, the reality is like that's like another thing. Coffee really just played with some of the greatest players ever to play the game. I mean,
Makar's already got 254 blocks. I'm willing to say Coffee didn't have that in his whole career.
But nobody is better than Bobby Orr.
Yeah, they're all different.
Thanks, Mike. We wouldn't have known that.
Yeah, that was
to me though. The quarterback thing, the quarterback passing thing, like that. That's where.
What about the block shots? Makar's blocked
exclamation point.
Makar's blocked 254 shots in his career. Coffee didn't block anything.
No, Makar's better defensively than Coffee was.
Yeah,
I definitely agree with that. All right, that's all the time we have for today, folks. We will see you again tomorrow. Enjoy the games tonight. Remember, without the buzz, it is just hockey. We will see you then.